This video is going to be tricky to make because we are talking about the shallowest of the shallow, and we are also talking about the most profound of the profound. In reality, in 2016, there's a distinction between lifestyle veganism and vegan activism, even within this completely phony and peculiar sphere of digital veganism, as I call it. Now, there shouldn't be, and I think in some kind of philosophical or abstract sense, there isn't a difference between lifestyle veganism and vegan activism. But if you want to know what I'm talking about, you can take a glance at a YouTube channel like Tess Begg, a name I didn't even know until yesterday, came up in a conversation with another vegan. There are vegans actively depicting and promoting bikinis and beaches and bicycles and buffets and plates full of fruit and showing off a lifestyle of self-indulgence, luxury, athleticism, healthy eating, but it's what I like to call a permanent vacation, right? Now, for a contrast to that, and look, sexuality is also a huge component of all this. Whether it's male virility or female sexuality, I don't have to spell it out for you guys. Look at any of these channels. It's part of what's being bought and part of what's being sold. The dream of a second youth for older people, and obviously for young people, it's a component of the transaction. Now, to contrast that, you can take a look at London Vegan Actions. They also have a YouTube channel, London Vegan Actions. They're young women of about the same age. I don't know anyone's age exactly in this comparison. London Vegan Actions, they're filming themselves, standing in front of a restaurant, chanting about foie gras, trying to get foie gras taken off the menu. They're doing street activism. One of their forms of activism was sitting in the subway, the London subway system, and showing video of slaughterhouse conditions, trying to get strangers interested in veganism. So, look, in a real sense, there is no difference between lifestyle veganism and vegan activism. Like, in real life, the same people who are doing these actions, who are attending these protests, they may go on vacation once in a while too. I don't know, maybe they never go on vacation. They're not depicting themselves as being on permanent vacation. They're not showing off what they eat for breakfast that morning. And they're not motivated by the fantasy that 10,000 people will watch a video carefully edited together of what I ate for breakfast this morning. But they still got to eat breakfast. And, it may be that some of the people who present the grimiest, grungiest, edgiest, most political and activist version of themselves, so that's what they choose to broadcast, that's what they choose to present to the world, engage with the internet. Those same people, for all I know, they go on vacation in Thailand once in a while, or they have a breakfast buffet that's even more luxurious than anything you see on the so-called lifestyle vegan channels. So it's a distinction that's more apparent but real. But it comes back to our subject here in a kind of dynamic way. The homie Joe Best, who has gotten himself into a lot of trouble in the vegan community, the community that is not a community, he's put up a series of monologues basically complaining about how excluded he feels and that he's now going to stop even referring to himself as vegan and talking about the political implications of this. And he's saying, honestly enough, how hard it has been for him to be a guy transitioning from eating meat to veganism and to be accepted in the community with his own imperfections and so on. Now, look, the problem has been, and this is invisible to Joe Best himself because he's knee-deep in the game, and there's a sexual component to this. Joe Best, man, you aren't on that subway in London showing that film of slaughterhouse conditions. You're not at the slaughterhouse filming either, okay? You're not doing legit activism or political agitation or even public education of any kind, okay? If you were, the fact that you are a fat, bald, middle-aged man would not be such an obstacle to you. It really wouldn't. I'm probably older than Joe Best. I mean, I don't know his age either. But I mean, I'm a middle-aged intellectual. I don't pretend to be something I'm not. I don't pretend to be Tess Begg, and I don't pretend to hang with Tess Begg. If I met someone like her, I might have a polite conversation, but someone who's dramatically younger than me and someone who's involved with, trying to capitalize on, trying to commercialize that kind of luxurious lifestyle, that's not someone I'm going to have a lot of common ground with. And we all know the story with Joe Best. It's an understatement to say, he was trying to get in on that lifestyle vegan world. He was trying to, be a member of himself, and he was trying to get involved with, romantically, several women who were playing exactly that game. Women who were, if I'm going to be blunt, part of what's going on here is what I call the rise of the Freely clones. People who are trying to clone, trying to imitate the success of Freely and her channel, her fame, her money, and so on. But I notice, most of Freely's imitators, they do not keep it real in the way Freely does. Although it's not every video, like it's not that big a percentage of what she does, Freely has put out really honest talk about her drug use, about her past jobs as a waitress in a cocktail lounge. She's talked about real life in a pretty gritty and honest way, down to earth, that you will not find on the channels of most of her imitators. But also, look, imitation, lightning doesn't strike twice. It's always going to be different because it's not the first time. It's always going to be different for you because you didn't invent it, right? So look, this is the brutally honest truth. Joe Best is complaining that he's not welcome in veganism. But the reality is he is just not welcome in the phoniest, shallowest side of lifestyle veganism. And of course he's not. That's the side of veganism where being beautiful matters, where being young matters, being athletic matters, and of course being 100% vegan matters. And his experience would be totally different, and he'd be complaining about something completely different if he were involved in, I don't know what to say, political veganism, real vegan activism, public education, any kind of charity work. If this guy were producing illustrated books to educate children about vivisection, he would have a level of respect from the community. The community does this completely different from the way he's regarded, because we all know the game he's playing there in Thailand. And I ain't even hating on the game. I'm not trying to shame you, Joe Best. I don't play that game myself, but, it's as old as planet Earth. Earth ain't going to stop turning around, and, guys like you ain't going to stop doing what they got to do. Now, I feel like this video has already gone on to its limit, but the truth is I had a completely separate issue to raise here that I think Joe Best is oblivious to. All right, let's try to tack it on now. You don't know how suffering will change you. And part of being vegan, being a committed, ethically motivated vegan, being 100% vegan, it involves some suffering, okay? Joe Best has this flippant attitude of saying, well, he's mostly vegan, but sometimes he goes to the 7-Eleven, this is in Thailand, and, they don't have the bread he usually buys, so he buys some other bread, and he doesn't read the label, and he doesn't care whether or not it contains some milk powder or something like this. He eats meat and cheese once in a while out of convenience in this way. It may not be a lot of suffering, Joe, but you know what? There are people of principle who, on point of principle, will go hungry rather than eat that bread with the milk powder in it. And if you had that experience, I can say, you don't know how that suffering would change you. That's one of the things in life you can never anticipate. You can never see into the future. Suffering will change your character. It will change who you are to the core of your being. And now this is not intense suffering. It's not. You can go for a day without eating at all and be okay. I did a bike trip, probably over 115 kilometers. I got off the bike in this small village in Thailand, and I could not eat anything in the whole village. I couldn't even get white rice. I managed to get soy milk. And some of the brands of soy milk in Thailand have milk powder, so you got to watch out for that. So I mean, I was completely burnt out and exhausted, and I had like Gatorade and soy milk and no solid food. It's a matter of principle. I've probably said this in the channel before. I've been to business meetings where there was a fabulous buffet. I'm thinking about in like Hong Kong especially. This also happened to me in Thailand. Went to a lavish buffet for a business function, and I didn't eat a goddamn thing. I went hungry. And I sat there, and the meeting continues, and I have an empty plate, and everyone around me is eating dead animals, because, even the rice has little bits of pork in it or whatever, everything. God, now that I remember that, in Taiwan, that was a huge problem. I worked inside a museum. It was quite isolated in Taiwan. And even the rice had pork fat, even the noodles, everything had meat. And yeah, I would eat nothing. And sometimes, that was it. Like for the day, you would go to these banquets that were part of the business meeting. You really didn't have another choice. People can give all kinds of examples of much more intense personal suffering in their lives that come out of being vegan. And obviously, this is nothing compared to the suffering of the animals or what have you. But yeah, Joe, it is natural. People who have that experience, who have that level of commitment and care, people who are willing to go hungry on point of principle, how are they going to look at you? And you're presenting yourself not just as an anonymous schlub, but as a community leader, right? And you put yourself in a leadership role. And again, there's a sexual component to that. We know why you did that, right? I mean, let's keep it 100, all right? Let's keep it 100% honest and real here. Lifestyle veganism is not open to everybody. Vegan activism, political agitation, is not open to everybody. But yeah, if you're a middle-aged, bald intellectual and you want respect, because that's what he's complaining about, is disrespect, not getting respect. There are a lot of different ways for you to earn respect in this community that doesn't even exist. But trying to play games with Tess Begg, that ain't one of them.